Good morning. What a nice presentation to start the day, especially on change management. And kudos to the speaker for bringing a wealth of experience. That sets the stage for something which is very innovative and which is at the heart of change that we are all seeing, both technologically and operationally. So, we are going to talk about the agentic AI, and the focus of this presentation is about what is the actual value chain of agentic AI in the operations world and what are the challenges we are seeing. Quick introduction about myself, and I will let Ashu go ahead. Vinay Momigati, Executive Vice President, Strategy and Customer Transformation at Skan AI. I'm primarily responsible for multiple functions, leading the strategy, customer success, marketing, and strategic alliances at Skan. But primarily, I come from an industry background. I spent my last 20 years working for large corporations like Bank of America, LexisNexis, United Health Group, where I led enterprise functions on automation, process excellence, large scale digital and business transformation. So I'm not here just speaking as a representation from Skan, but also bring the experience of implementing these technologies in a real life. And along the way, I would like to also emphasize that I'm very privileged to be sharing the stage with my ex-colleague from LexisNexis, now our customer, and of course, one of the well-known industry thought leaders, AI expert and automation expert, Ashu. Ashu, over to you, please. Yeah.
That's too kind, Vinay. Thank you so much. I'll buy you that beer tonight. So, good morning, everybody. Glad to be back here. As you can see, I was here last year too, and that's the picture from last year when I had longer hair. Anyway, so Ashu Chaudhary, I have about 20 years of experience. I started in the consulting space, did consulting in process transformation for about 10 years, then worked at Barclays and LexisNexis, where I was leading a process and digital transformation efforts. Currently, I work as senior director at Chasm, which is a background screening company. And I lead the process excellence and the intelligent automation space. And as Vinay said, been partnering with Skan for close to a year and a half now. And we'll share some more ideas on how we are looking at agentic AI at Chasm. Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Vinay.
So, what are we going to cover in the presentation today? The presentation is focused on our experience working with 50 of the global companies who are leading the different industry segments like insurance, banking, manufacturing, high tech. Skan is primarily a provider of AI-powered process intelligence platform. And over the last few years that we have been working with these global corporations, we have come very close to how these large corporations are thinking about generative AI and adopting the agentic technologies or agentic AI in their operations. So we are not just focused on process intelligence, but now we are taking that extra leap in terms of leveraging the power of generative AI to not only enable the journeys of our customers, but to cross the last mile of what the challenges we are seeing in the agentic value chain. We'll talk about the opportunities, we'll talk challenges, and I'll also share a couple of demos on how we are building a solution that is going to address a problem which is at the heart of agentic AI today. So let's talk about the evolution of this agentic AI. I mean, agentic AI is not new. I mean, we have seen agents since the inception of RPA and probably even before that, expert systems. But when we brought RPA, it was mostly programmatic definition of work. And then we saw the evolution of natural language processing, natural language generation, and machine learning, which actually helped boost the opportunities in task agents and the service agents. And now with the power of generative AI, we're able to see the autonomous process agents, which are driving the next generation of business advantages and operational transformations. Now, along the way, we see this move from programmatic to predictive to now we are talking about the generative concepts, which is changing the entire dimension of how we should be looking at the transformation. If you see a little bit deeper into what these task, service, and process agents mean, the task agents are primarily request and response, primarily handling very discrete tasks. And usually we see this in order fulfillment or emails kind of tasks. And then we saw the evolution of service agents, which are primarily focused on helping the interaction with customers, fulfilling opportunities. But we saw the addition of context and the ability to take actions as we are doing personalized customer service and interactions. Usually, we see this in order fulfillment again, taking to the next level, customer self service, and resolution of various issues. But then comes the whole process agents concept, which again is very much in its infancy. And why I would say that is like now we are adding more dimensions, like the ability to add goals or embedding goals in your automation. And as the goals are being actualized, we are looking at bringing in the process aspect. And what makes us different from the task here? We are talking about stateful representation of process, ability to handle stateful processes, but also ability to handle the continuous optimization, learning. So this whole goal-oriented, autonomous, contextual automation is changing the entire landscape of how these agents are going to look at. Now, along the way, we are seeing more than 1,000 vendors crop up in this space, and some of them are well-established players. But across these vendors, we are seeing very distinct patterns. Like there are vendors who are providing personal productivity agents. There are vendors who are providing platform-centric agents to enable their platforms to provide more value. And then we are talking about the orchestration agents, where we can take any work that's happening in the operations where humans are involved and converting that into autonomous agents. Now, that is the real opportunity we are going to talk about today, not so much about the discrete personal productivity or the interaction based agents.
So just a quick note
before we go forward, yes, please go ahead, Ashu. You want to talk about the opportunities according to Saiziv's understanding?
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to jump in here is just to highlight that we started this transformation journey at Saiziv literally, I would say, 7 months ago. I built a team from scratch, and we have been brainstorming for opportunities, building our transformation pipeline. And initially, when we started talking to business leaders, identifying the problems and saying, this is what they need to be, this is what needs to be addressed, we had a list of 30, 35 opportunities in the first 4 weeks of just talking to individuals. But more than half of those opportunities, we had to classify them as falling in the category of AI, because at some point, RPA cannot go beyond a certain point. Wherever you need some sort of human judgment, some human action needs to be taken. That's one of the shortfalls of RPA, right? And that's when I realized that we have to do something more than RPA. Because with RPA, yes, it's a great tool. It helps you automate, repetitive tasks. It takes the robot out of the humans and all that good stuff. But it can only give you so much, right? If you're looking in terms of ROI, you're building a team, you want to deliver as much as value to the business, you have to look at the high-hitting targets. Like you have to look where humans are spending their time on human judgment, where they are thinking about actions to be taken. And that's where, all our other opportunities started going into this bucket for agentic AI. And we are exploring a couple of opportunities now. We have use cases, I'll talk about them, where we want to see how we can leverage agentic AI for achieving truly, enterprise-wide transformation. Thanks, Vinay. That's all I wanted to.
Thank you, Ashu. So just continuing on what Ashu was explaining, I want to share the learnings from Skan. So over the last 6+ years, we have been working with more than 50 companies, and we have observed thousands of operators across these companies. So I would say that the wealth of knowledge that Skan has gathered is probably close to 100,000 plus person years of the operator data observation. What do we see? If we were to abstract the observation that Skan has gained, we learned that if you map the enterprise operations labor footprint, where humans are involved, and what is the opportunity for agentic AI, we basically see that most of the space, especially looking at the work volume, the outcome predictability, and the work complexity. I don't know if you can see the bottom part of the graph, but basically it is the axis is talking about predictability of outcomes and the complexity. So if you map the work in line with these two axes, we see that RPA is predominantly focused on solving the lower left side of the problem, which is low volume of work, low complexity, and high predictability. But then when we saw that when we map the work that operators do, if I'm observing 300 operators in the cash management operations of a financial wealth management company, We come out and say that, oh, almost 50% of the work that we have modeled can be automated. But we were stopping short of it because the technologies were not available to us. Now we have the technologies. And this is based on the hard facts and data that every client we are presenting, we are basically saying that the opportunity is about 60% of the workforce can be automated, but technologies fall short today. But I don't have that answer, or I don't have that same challenge as we move forward. Because the power of agentic AI is able to solve it. And I'm going to show it to you how we are able to achieve this. So as we move forward, we see almost 50% plus work that can be easily automated based on the back office, mid office operations that many companies handle. So that brings us to a little bit of a technology aspects, and I'll keep it a little more English language. Like if you see task agents, service agents, they are built on large language models, and which I'm sure all of us have used ChatGPT or the Gemini from Google. Ultimately, when you see these large language models, they are powering the task agents and the service agents because they need language where they can generate code, content, conversations, etc. The moment you shift to process agents, suddenly we are looking at a new dimension. The process agents require large action models. And what are these large action models and why are they different? Basically, large action models take this large language model concept one step further by embedding the goals, the flow execution, the enterprise context, and the ability to continuously optimize. And the training for large action models is not coming from the large corpus of these OpenAI, ChatGPT kind of corpus that is available, because we have to train these models on the enterprise human interaction models. And that is where the challenges start for agentic AI. Let's go a little bit further in terms of looking at what is that challenge, and let's make it a little more explanatory here. So many agentic platforms today promise that yes, we have a perfect answer to the agentic automation. Recently, OpenAI launched Operator, a new tool which has answers to agentic AI. And of course, we saw Crew.ai, we saw again there are Autogen. There are many agentic platforms today, but seldom these vendors talk about the training data for the large action models. They are too busy selling orchestration platforms. And the reason is that it's easy. I can give me an execution model and or a large action model and I can execute it. But the problem is that when you shift from large language to large action models, we are falling short of one critical element, and that is the availability of high fidelity, granular data. It should be first party, enterprise specific contextual modeling data of human actions. And without that, implementing process agents is very difficult. So this is the problem that Skan is trying to solve as a part of our next journey in generative AI. So again, I will go a little bit deeper into what Skan does. I explained about Skan as a process intelligence platform. But fundamentally, we are here to solve the problem of understanding how humans work. So through direct observation of operators at scale, Skan generates the telemetry of work data model. Now, the key words here is the direct observation. Secondly, we are looking at a comprehensive representation of the work data, which we call as telemetry of work, and generating the direct capture of human actions. Now, we see this when Skan generates the outcomes. Basically, we are representing it as a complete taxonomy of work, which includes the process flows, the task flows, the screen and interaction flows, the date and timestamps, the document interactions, communications, environment variables, and of course, all the exception paths. So you need all these as a part of your training data for your large action models, without which implementing generative AI for agentic automation becomes very challenging. So this is where I would like to show a little demo here where we are looking at Skan in action, where Skan is observing directly how humans are working. It could be mainframes, it could be many different types of interactions and systems. But along the way, you are also seeing that that observation is being converted into a data model in real time, continuously. And this is the translation of direct observation of human work into a direct representation of human action model. Now, this is the feed for the large action models. But the story is not complete. I'm just showing you one of the key ingredients of large action model. But more importantly, how we get to this stage. It's basically by representing or by applying the concept of a digital operations twin. So Scan works like a digital twin of operations by implementing sensors on the operator desktops and using the power of high computational logic. We are able to generate millions of event streams that finally get embedded into these outcomes. Ash, you want to talk about how do you see Scan as a part of Syzio's journey in your agentic journey? Yeah.
So we started using Scan, I would say about 12 months ago, 13 months ago. And we started with a small proof of concept with just 50 agents. And we discovered that we were having a huge gap between most of our workforce is remote, by the way, and want to highlight that. That makes a lot of difference on how much control you have over your employees. And not that we don't trust them, but we actually found that there was one bad actor who actually had two jobs, moonlighting. I think that happens a lot in the industry. So we were able to find that out by putting Scan on their machines because they were gone for like more than half of the day, and their productivity was low. Anyway, so after those promising results, we decided to expand our scope of operations, and we deployed Scan across our entire operations, going from 50 to 500 licenses. And since then, the wealth of data that we've been able to generate, being able to generate process maps of how exactly the process is happening, as opposed to someone telling us that this is what I do. Most often than not, being in this area for about 20 years now, I've seen that when you conduct these, time and motion studies, you call them, or value stream mapping sessions, people tend to miss certain details of their process when they're explaining a process to you. They will probably, that process is so ingrained in them that they don't think twice about it. It's like explaining someone how do you drive a car, right? If you've been driving it for a few years, you probably are going to miss certain details like, open the handle door, right? You may not even think about telling that as a part of the process. And that's what happens when, explaining business processes. But through Scan, we are able to look at the exact process, how it works. And now where we are at a point is, when we started this transformation journey, we did a bunch of RPA projects. We got great ROI on them. Now we are at a stage where we know exactly what is happening in operations, and we want to see how we can leverage a large action model to bridge the gap where we have where RPA stops and where the humans actually have to do the work. And we are exploring a use case with Scan where I can't give too many details on it, otherwise our competitors might steal my idea, right? So we do background screening, right? So basically, let's say a John Smith is looking for a job, and we have to make sure that that person doesn't have any leads that need to be reported to the let's say he's joining a bank somewhere. And what happens is, through our platform, we read the databases of each individual, and we see if this person had any records against his or her name, right? Any felony records, misdemeanor records, drug carrying, marijuana, whatever it may be. And let's say there is a hit, right? But in a lot of cases, by federal laws, we are not supposed to tell the clients that we are not supposed to report this. Like if a misdemeanor was committed 7 years ago, then we're not supposed to report it. Now, this is where RPA can't do anything with us, right? So this record for us was a do not report record. We cannot report this to the client that John Smith had a case against him more than 7 years ago. And we have to go into the sentencing information in the platform, read that information, what it says, find out the date on which the sentence was given to that candidate. And if that date is more than 7 years ago, then we cannot report it, right? So we have a human who has to take that call. It's not a simple field where you could just, it's not structured data, basically. That sentencing date can be anywhere. And that's where Scan comes in, and where we can see how the humans are doing this action, and we can train the model based on the data that we've collected so far. We've been running this on our operations for the last 5 months now, all across our operations. We have plenty of data to see what humans do in what scenarios. And using that, we are planning to, we are at the beginning of this, we haven't really started, any deployment on this, but this is an idea that we are exploring with Scan. And very soon we hope that, definitely by next OPEX, I'll have a few more use cases to share on how we've implemented this.
Thanks, Ashu. I think you brought a very critical element, which I call as the tacit dimension. You might have heard about it. When you ask somebody how they drive the car, it's very difficult to explain. But to capture that digitally has been one of the primary focus areas of Scan. And let's go a little bit deeper into understanding the large action models. And I'll try to keep it again a little bit at a high level from an understanding standpoint. So, the best way to explain large action models is to look at how human operators work. Basically, if I'm bringing in a human operator to process a claim, they're first given a goal or a target, saying that this is the objective for us to achieve, and then along the way we are training them in terms of looking at what are the inputs available to them, how they should perceive and reason those inputs, and then look at the reference data, manuals, rules, policies, procedures, etc. Take the data from the enterprise data sources and then create a work plan, execute it, and then completely validate and then continue to improve. This is what humans do. Now, that's the exact representation of what we are trying to do with large action models. Basically, the first principle we want our large action model to be ready for is the ability to take inputs or prompts coming from humans or from any enterprise multimodal channels. And then once we have acquired the input, we should be having the ability to reason out exactly what is the objective based on the goal set. And then there is a technical aspect of looking at what are the enterprise data sources, references that these models should be looking at to create the work plan. And that's where we have this, we call it as RAG, but of course that's the industry term now, which is retrieval augmented generation. Basically, the model should be able to absorb the data coming from enterprise sources, the memory, the reference documents, etc. And then create an action plan. Now, the action of a large action model could be doing the task by itself or triggering a host of other agents, other bots, or API calls. But having done all this, still the agent should take the responsibility as an orchestration platform to make sure that we achieve the intended outcomes and then continuously look at are we optimizing these outcomes for the best possible results. It's not just about completing the task, but continuously optimizing with the parameters given to it. And then this is where we see the action of or the working of a large action model. And to generate this kind of a model, just imagine, can we take an OpenAI large language model and hope that it gets us to the large action model? Absolutely no. This requires, again, the first party, high fidelity, actual operations data by observing humans. And without this, the operations agents can't function or the process agents cannot function. So let's go a little bit further. Now we are trying to bring all the stuffs together. So we talked about large language, large action models. We talked about the chasm or the missing link in this journey. And then we talked about how Scan works as a digital process twin, digital operations twin, and generates the telemetry of work data, which directly captures the direct modeling of human actions. I left one last piece, which is a critical element. So we got all this data, we had the models, the data, everything with us. What we invested in last year was to complete the bridge in terms of generating. We created a proprietary transformer model, which takes all the data that we have and converts it into a large action model. The power of what we are trying to do here is that the large action model generated out of Scan is platform agnostic. You can run it on Anthropic Claude or Crew AI or probably the new operator model launched by OpenAI. Secondly, it is enterprise specific with first party data. So these two parameters make the SLAM, or which you call it as Scan large action model concept, a far more practical solution to bridging that chasm, which is haunting most of our last mile journeys in the agentic process. So I'll show you a practical example. This is a claims adjuster agent that we built working with one of the insurance clients that we have. This is still not in production. We are working in a co-innovation mode, and we are currently working with a few of our customers to develop these agents for different use case scenarios. But the objective of this agent, and I'll show you a demo right after this, is firstly we are looking at beyond RPA. I mean, the moment I say agentic AI, everyone thinks that, oh, can I take RPA to next level? That is not the perspective here. We are talking about entire role automation. What a human role performs as an end-to-end process, we are looking at that. All the way from goals to outcomes and all the interim steps involved, state management, references that they basically look at, policies and procedures being referred, everything. So we are basically looking at this model to come together. So I'm going to jump to the next one where we have a video of the agent in action, and I will explain a little bit, but this is a self-running video. So here we're talking about a claim center, and again, we start with the target setting where we are looking at the agent knows exactly what it is supposed to do in terms of either denying a claim or paying a claim. And there are optimization parameters fed into this agent, like the turnaround time, a big part of it, experience, and third is the profitability or the denial rate, which also has an optimization around whether you are losing money or making money in your process. So now along the way, this agent is going through step by step all the way from intake to setup. But what brings all this together is that power of agentic operating model, which I really want to give credit to the customer we are working with. They are thinking one step ahead where they see a human operator or a human supervisor managing tens to 50 plus agents single handedly. So this is the transformation they are embarking on, where a human agent can simultaneously monitor more than 50 digital workers who are the claims adjusters, but they are digital and they only jump in where they see exceptions. This is the fast forward that we are imagining, and I'll be very candid here that this is a journey where we are in the infancy today. But I don't know whether it will take 6 months to go into production with this, or maybe 9 months. But definitely, it's going to be in 2025. So I just wanted to highlight the journey we are taking, the practical value that we are able to see, and how we are able to see our clients adopt agentic AI in collaboration with scans, process intelligence, and generative AI models. Ashu, you want to share anything about your overall strategy and the journey that you are after?
Sure, Vinay. Looking at the time here, so I'll try to keep this quick. So we started with, when I established the Center of Excellence at SciSig, we started with, first thing we did was, get a process mining vendor. We evaluated different vendors and chose Skan. And that enabled us to do, process discovery, understanding exactly how our processes work. Once we had that, the next step for us was to run some process excellence projects, right? You don't want to optimize or you don't want to automate a bad process. So process optimization was really the next step that we did. Once we had our processes optimized, then we looked at automating them, right? Using traditional methods such as RPA, BPMS. And now we are at a stage where we have proven a lot of ROI through using these three levers for our transformation program. The next step for us is to jump into the agentic automation space. And that's where we are partnering with Skan to, hopefully in 2025, we are looking at a few opportunities that we can work on and deliver. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashu. That brings us to the last part of the presentation to wrap up the key takeaways and key messages that we shared. I'd like to limit it to just 3 messages. The first message is about, as you choose your agentic orchestration platforms or the agentic process automation platforms, keep your eyes on how are you going to train those models, because we need a vast amount of data to train the large action models. And where is that data going to come from? The expectation is that you're going to put a subject matter expert and they are going to code this, but that would be decimating the entire high powered value of what agents could do for us. So that's the first thing I'm leaving behind as a message here, because that's a learning for us also. The second is the mindset. Are we just looking at incremental shift from RPA to RPA on steroids? Or are we changing the complete mindset of task automation to a role automation? So we are looking at a complete role. And if your agentic automation cannot replace the role completely for most basic kind of works that are being performed, we are undermining. At least have that as an aspiration and a part of your journey, so that as you progress, you're not ending up replacing RPA with agentic AI, only calling it as, for the namesake as an agent. The last point I would like to mention here is that production readiness requires a few considerations. And this is where traceability and ability to audit what is happening with the agents becomes very critical. There's a term which is going on in the industry right now, which is neurosymbolic AI. Along with the direct modeling or direct capture of human actions, the neurosymbolic AI is another term that's making rounds. But essentially what it means is the visual representation of large action models. So if you are not able to represent large action models, your business stakeholders who are supposed to sign off on these agents' functionality won't be able to relate to them. So the best thing is to keep that in mind and say that as you develop large action models, put them into your agentic platforms, make sure there's a visual representation which your business teams can relate to and continuously manage the change and the compliance related aspects. So we're on top of the hour, almost dot on time. But if you have any questions, and I don't know if you have time, Kathy, for any questions we can take. Otherwise, I would also like to request you to visit the Skan booth in the Partner Arena, booth number 13. But also, I would like to leave a message here that we are looking at partners who could join our co-innovation program for agentic revolution that's happening. And if anyone is interested, please reach out to our marketing team. We'd be very happy to partner with you. Thank you all.
We have one time for one question? No? Yeah, let's okay. We got a long break, so if you need a question, we'll take one or two. Microphone, please. Raise your hands again, please. Here you go. Up here in the very front.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'll admit I'm still a little bit of a skeptic for AIs, but based on the last presentation, I hope you take that as a positive. The one thing that I'm wondering if you could maybe talk about is that customer feedback loop. The one area of AI that I remain skeptical on is those instances where it doesn't go to plan and how AI is able to deal with those situations. When I look at that, I always look at those as what the sort of things we need to plan for and the opportunity to go above and beyond for the client. But that's one area where, when it comes to AI, I'm I guess still skeptical that AI can do that. Can you maybe speak to how your system can integrate that customer feedback as well as deal with those hiccups that always do tend to come up in processes?
Sure, that's a very interesting and important question, because as we are deploying these agents, of course, right now we are still in the experimentation and innovation stage. So I was explaining the large action model under the hood, right? One point which I didn't mention was the RLHF. That's a reinforcement learning with human feedback, which is embedded into these models. So initially, when we start to train these models, until they reach the level of accuracy and performance, we are always embedding them through the human loop. And that's where the humans are constantly looking at what the agent produced, and is it in line with the policies and procedures or the guidelines or the optimization parameters. So that RLHF is what finally brings everything together with the human intervention. Now, programmatically, many of our the large action models being brought on vendors don't have that ability. So that's why when Skan is developing these platforms or large action models, one of the key principles for us is ability to look at retrieval augmented generation, where you are always able to go back to the memory reference data, the transaction data, and be able to absorb that in a live action, which is what agents are supposed to do. And then along the way, whatever agent is producing, how do you bring human in loop? And that has to be embedded in the large action model. So maybe you need to train these models for 6 months after you have deployed them. And until then, you are able to constantly monitor every action. And that's where, when I showed you the agentic operation model, which was an actual screenshot from the lab that we are building for this insurance client, they are running multiple agents, but a human is sitting and operating or observing every single one of them. So that's how I would say that it's a journey. And again, unlike RPA, which is programmatically defined, we are taking a leap forward. You can just say that a new operator comes into your agent, claims processing arena. First 9 months, they are going to commit a lot of mistakes. And one of the insurance companies with whom we work, they say that an average time to proficiency for a claims processing agent in disability claims is about minimum 9 months and can go up to 18 months for a full proficiency. Now, we are going to be much faster than that, but at scale. And their average churn rate is 3.5 years. So the ultimate productive life of a claims processing agent in a disability insurance is exactly 18 months or 24 months. Now imagine that and the amount of churn and friction you are going to generate to the agents that are going to be operating. So this is a leap forward, but I'm just saying that there is a lot of training and considerations involved here, but it's very promising.
Just one thing I'll add is, whenever you're deploying any AI agents, you take a look at we set a threshold for accuracy. How much accuracy are you willing to take, like, and basically what your confidence level is with that. So if you have a critical process which is customer facing, you probably want more than 99% accuracy with your AI agent. And if you are getting 90%, you don't deploy it to production. As Vinay said, just keep on training the model till it gets better, and then finally you deploy it when you're comfortable.
Great. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
We're ready for a break. Everybody looks like they're ready for a coffee.